All right, hey friends, this is Brian, and well, you know who I am, creator of Open Sauce, and this channel we're to start uploading these conversations we've had. So we had a great time doing the open source contributor summit. We had a bunch of projects come together and talk about their projects and how to contribute, as well as members from the community. But what I want to do is actually take these conversations and make them monthly, and not just wait, once a year to do an event. So every month we'll have a new guest on my Twitch stream, which you should definitely subscribe. bdougie.live on Twitch, and we'll upload the videos here so that way you can watch them after the fact if you can't make it for whatever reason. So this conversation's focused on Daniel and OneGraph. OneGraph is a dashboard to aggregate a bunch of APIs together, primarily to give you one GraphQL API, hence the name. So I do want to point out there's an excerpt I put on my other channel, which is the bdougie channel, around us using Spotify and the Baybot to make music start and stop. If you're interested in that, definitely check that out. It's over there. That's about it. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have ideas or if you want to come on the pizza party and talk about your project, talk about open source, please reach out. You know how to find me, bdougie on Twitter, or leave a comment below. And yeah, see you later.
But let me go ahead and have you introduce yourself, since I'm doing such a great job right now.
Yeah, sure. I'm Daniel. I'm one of the founders of OneGraph. And OneGraph is one GraphQL API for all of your favorite REST APIs and the ones that you hate, especially. And we try to pull everything into one endpoint so that you don't have to go learn how every esoteric API works. You just come to one place. You use one pagination function. You use one authentication function, and it just works with everything.
Yeah.
So it really changes how you develop integrations.
Yeah, and so I discovered OneGraph thanks to Sean, who's your co-founder. I came on the Jamstack Radio podcast. Man, was that like 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah, probably. I think we've been working on it for about three years now.
Yeah, and so that was my first introduction. I think I'd heard of it maybe through a conference talk. But I've been actually using OneGraph pretty consistently with my project called OpenSauced. Most people who watch me or follow me on Twitter know what that is. Opensauced.pizza is powered by OneGraph. And then recently, I made a big update into my site, which is bdougie.live, and that is also powered by OneGraph as well. At the moment, I'm only leveraging it for a couple different things, mainly just talking to the GitHub API. So this is powered by OneBlog. But before we jump into all this too, as well, I wanted to find out more about OneGraph, the company, as well. You guys went through YC. How long ago was that?
I think we were 2018, so it's about 2 years.
Okay.
And that was great. We got to meet lots of different companies and different, I think that's where we got our early customers. And then, they get you prepared to pitch to investors, and they made that process a lot easier. So it's a really great experience.
Yeah, and that was 2018 feels like forever ago. After a year like this year.
It was a long time, yeah. I mean, especially because you see like each new batch come through, and so you feel a little old once.
Old in startup years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually know someone who was in the most recent batch. Actually, maybe it's still going. I'm not sure when it actually ends, to be honest. But they did their entire batch remote. This year.
I saw it. Well, you did the stream with the Supabase guy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Koppel and team, they set up shop to sort of have a break before heading over to the Bay Area, and then COVID, obviously the pandemic hit, so he just stayed put in Singapore. I didn't mention that, but he was in Singapore like on a workcation. So he ended up doing the entire batch in Singapore, and then meeting some of these other founders. Yeah.
During COVID times too.
Oh yeah, it's like a wonderful. You go through all the tunnels and the connected system. I've never been. Ironically, I was supposed to be in Singapore earlier this year for FOSS Asia, but
oh man,
yeah, obviously that didn't happen. But yeah, excellent. So does YC? You're connected. You get help with with raising, but also are you connected to all the other batches that have gone through just now as well?
Oh yeah, there's like a community And then they have like alumni demo days, so you can see what people are building and provide feedback and encourage people. And people ask questions, and it's a nice little community with really lots of people who are supportive founders. And even Super Bass guy, I thought it was a great stream, and he mentioned that the Firebase founders and the Parse founders, who were both going through YC, were really helpful in providing feedback. So it's very encouraging atmosphere.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things I've seen too as well is like being able to talk and connect to people who've done it before. Like I'm not racing around or anything like that or going to start a startup, but I'm like when it comes to just contributing open source, which is kind of the thing I'm really focused on at the moment. It's nice to talk to people who have done it before, talk to people who have successful projects, and then like the sort of like trying to figure out as a contributor, trying to figure out what projects are out there that are actually taking on contribution is helpful. What companies are doing open source, which is another thing that's been interesting. Like so, we talk about Superbase, OneGraph as well. You have your product itself is not open source, but you have a lot of projects that are open sourced. Do you want to talk about those?
Well, yeah, our two, I guess main ones are just extensions to GraphQL, the query editor that most people who use GraphQL are very familiar with. I don't know if you want to open it up,
Yep.
but the Explorer just makes it much easier for you to build a query, and it's been adopted by some GraphQL APIs. We see more and more every day. It's in the like Apollo Dev Tools, GitHub. GitHub puts it now in their default graphical instance. So that was based on actually a conversation Sean and I had with a friend of ours, and he was like, "Oh, it would be great if I could just like visually construct this query without having to type." And so Sean whipped up a prototype of it. It worked great, and then we've just been improving on it and adding a bunch of features. Sean's just been throwing out so many new features. You probably can't see them, but there's like fragment extraction. There's a query variable extraction. So it's got a lot of nice features that make it just much easier to build a GraphQL query.
Yeah.
And that you can embed in any graphical instance.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is like, is it powered by React?
Oh yeah, it is. It's powered by React and the GraphQL JS. So it like parses the query to figure out, because we have to show you the top level fields, and for each field we need to know the type. And so GraphQL JS, it's embedded with graphical, so it's not like a new giant dependency. Provides some really nice handlers for parsing a query and parsing it against a schema. So you can say, okay, this field says it is called like Google, so it's of type Google query, and then here are all the fields that you can access. So that's how it like knows what fields are available.
I build a lot of tools that are built on top of the GitHub API, GraphQL API. So having things like OneGraph makes it really easy for me to get up and running really quickly. So we're talking about the Explorer, and that's one of the open source projects. Were there other open source projects that what was the other one that you guys have?
So the other one is the code exporter, and that one might be, it's open source. The one thing that we haven't done a great job on is getting the snippets that we use. So the graphical code exporter, that one at the top.
Oh, there we are.
So I think there's probably a GIF if you scroll down a bit, so you can see what it does. But you open this up, and it generates code for different frameworks, different languages that you can use to like get started with some scaffolding. So if you don't know, like, okay, I've got this GraphQL query over here. This is a problem we had with potential customers where they would create a query and like, okay, that's cool, I got some data, but like, what do I do now? And now, there's this huge barrier to doing something useful because you have to figure out, how do I get the GraphQL packages that I need and everything. So we built a thing that that sets all up that boilerplate for you. And one thing that we have that's really nice well, Sean's been on a tear adding in support for a whole bunch of different frameworks. He's got Urkel, Relay support's coming out really soon. And we have the ability to turn that into a code sandbox. So if we want to allow you to create a code sandbox, we need like access to the app to add the correct CORS origins. So
Okay, this is literally my example that I just did in
nice.
The Explorer as well, which I think it's not by coincidence. This is like one of the first fields on the list. So,
and then if you go to the right and scroll down, there's the create the code sandbox.
Yep.
So this will log you in. This just logged you into your first app.
Okay, got it.
And now there's a code sandbox button there.
OneGraph. Do you want to explain OneGraph again, and how we're getting data from GitHub onto OneGraph, and how this sort of code exporter working is sort of popped up? Because I'm pretty sure if you haven't done this before, I'm pretty sure you're just like, I have no idea what to click in. Just clicking a bunch of buttons and stuff is showing up.
Yeah, well, so it's kind of a demonstration of, so OneGraph is one GraphQL endpoint for all of your different APIs. It brings them all together into one consistent interface that you can use. And because it's all consistent and everything uses the same patterns, it's really easy for us to build really advanced tooling, like this thing that takes any GraphQL query and it converts it into a full React app. So the code exporter is a way for someone who is just getting started with GraphQL. Like, you can probably figure out the graphical explorer and you can, get your avatar URL.
Yeah.
But once you've done that, it's like a big leap to go and build a full app. And so we have this kind of ramp that lets you, just click a few buttons, select the framework you want to use, select the language, and then from there, you've got an example app and you can kind of see how all the pieces fit together. And you just have to, you don't have to figure out like what dependencies do I need? How does the query fit in? How do I make the components run the query? Like, that's all done for you. And you can just like replace the parts that you need for your specific application, using the best practices so that you're set up for success in the future.
So real quick before we move on too as well, because I think I don't want to miss this as well. Like, you started this in 2018. GraphQL has been around since 2017 in alpha.
Yeah, well, Sean was talking about this to me. I just looked this up in like 2015. He had this idea. And he was explaining GraphQL to me, and I was like, well, it looks like you can only fetch data. How do you make mutations? How do you like write data? He was like, oh, no, they got that all figured out.
Yeah.
So it's been around in Facebook maybe since 2011. And then I think they started to be public a few years after that. And it's just been slowly gaining ground. And, with GitHub adding it to their API, I think that was a big inflection point.
GraphQL itself, like, a lot of people aren't familiar sort of on the onboarding path and getting into GraphQL. Sometimes you hear the spec and people can talk about it as a thing, but a lot of people don't know what to do with it. And I think what's cool about this is that you do have OneGraph, literally. It's the name of the app as well. It is OneGraph. But we have only been talking about GitHub, but if I scroll down, you could also see there are Spotify usage of this app as well. So we basically have this scaffold that Sean dropped in the chat, and then we exported that using the exporter that we talked that was an open source project here. So I think at this point my GitHub query is connected.
Yeah, so you can run that query, and then you can modify it in the code sandbox. You can export it as a zip, and like that's the start of your new project.
And sorry, am I where do I find? Oh, here we go. I'm just looking for the. So if I just wanted to add a bio.
Nice, it worked.
Sorry, I have to text my my significant other that my daughter is banging on the door. So we I reran the query. I got the bio as I guess as my daughter was actually screaming. I was typing in the bio, hit run. But yeah, this was a good example of sort of what OneGraph is. And I did want to actually touch on things like my site and how it's actually built by OneGraph, and how folks can actually jump on and check out I guess, some of the examples you have for the OneBlog. Before we got on stream, we talked about the essay. So did you want to talk about OneBlog and how folks can get started with that?
Yeah, well, let's maybe it would be interesting to dive into how what these little posts are.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Again, it's as an introduction to how this works.
Yeah, so if anybody who hasn't seen me, and if anybody has questions about GraphQL, we could also circle back and talk about that too as well. But yeah, for bdougie.live, I have a digital garden, which right now it's just a blog. I hope to add other stuff to it eventually, like my YouTube videos and stuff like that. But did I mention I have a YouTube? But anyway, I bring this up because I have these little posts, and these posts are really things that I'm working on stream. That's what I'm using bdougie.live for, is to sort of have a place that when I hit live on Tuesday or Fridays every week on Twitch, right here, I just want to keep track of what's happening. I'm doing a very bad job of actually keeping track, because you can see this post is pretty light. But I did want to point out that this is actually one-to-one to my GitHub issues as well. So if I went down to Baybot, with the Twitch bot with the tag Bay, you can see that this data here is the exact same data that's here. And the way I'm doing this is actually powered by OneGraph. And then the actual site itself is Next.js now too as well. So thanks for that PR. I think it was a month ago.
Yeah, we switched. We were using Razzle, which I still really enjoy in other projects, but I think for a demo, the idea behind OneBlog is that it's like a demo site.
Yeah.
For how to build things with OneGraph and Relay, and now Next.js is maybe a little more approachable for people. But the way this works, so anyone can go to bdougie.live and it can see all of these GitHub issues rendered as posts.
Yep.
And you can't make unauthenticated queries to the GitHub API. So you have to have some sort of authentication. And you don't really want to give out a token that gives access to the GitHub graph, because there's a lot of stuff in there that you don't want to expose. So we use this really cool GraphQL adjacent feature called persisted queries. And each of to get this this list of posts, instead of sending a full query, it just sends an ID. And so all of the fields that you can fetch are set in advance, and the variables are set in advance also. So your auth is attached to these queries, but all you can get are the
just being able to read the data.
Yeah, or the data that you've already set in advance.
Yeah. So right now, the data that you can get from my GitHub account using my token when you log on, or not even log on, when you just view the page, is just GitHub issues at the moment. GitHub issues, and then the reactions to those issues.
So your bdougie.live is like a fork of the OneBlog repo, and you've done all these customizations to make it yours with the Twitch. And so if you do go here, make sure to go, the new thing is on the next branch.
Okay.
So this will be the next one. And if someone wants to deploy this, we've got a Vercel button in the README, but it is a bit to go through. You've got to go set up a OneGraph account. You've got to create a few tokens. And if you want to do really nice login, you've got to set up a GitHub app. So it's there's a few steps to the process.
Yeah.
And so to show this off and to make it a little easier for people to get started, we've got a new site called essay.dev. So if you go to essay.dev, this is a OneBlog, and it's built on top of Next.js using their wildcard domain support. So anybody who has a GitHub account, it's their GitHub username.essay.dev, and it'll pull issues from, if you go here, you can see a welcome page, and if you create the issue on GitHub, there's a link there. You just put hello world.
Interesting. Did I do a comment as well?
Yeah, just type anything in there, and then once you create it, it'll pop up with a link as a comment. It might take a little second or two. Maybe if you refresh, there it goes. And it'll show you where that post is. And so this is now a post on, so now you've got a blog. All you have to do is create an issue.
Excellent.
And you can log in, you can leave reactions, you can leave comments. If someone leaves a reaction or a comment on the issue itself, it'll show up here.
And then to be clear, this is all on the issue I just opened on the, yeah. This is not this issue.
Yeah, I think it just hasn't updated here. If you refresh, it should.
Come on, Turbolinks. Oh, yep, there it is. Nice. So I could just spam the OneGraph essay.dev and create my whole blog right here.
Exactly, yeah. So we have a few people that are starting to use it, and then a few people like yourself who fork the OneBlog repo and create their own blogs. If you're following Hacker News, you've probably seen stopa.io.
I haven't seen Stopa.
So he's got some really good posts on. Well, he loves Lisp, so he's got some really good Lisp posts.
Is that the? Did I spell that right?
I think so. Yeah. So it's like completely different than yours because he's done different customizations.
Yes, he's kind of intense on the CSS here.
Oh yeah. Well, he's got very specific, and so these actually we have a Medium importer, and we imported all of his old posts from Medium.
Okay.
He was like one of the reasons he switched to this was because it's so hard building a developer blog on Medium. Like you can't embed highlighted code.
Yeah.
You have to embed a gist. And so it's just a real pain. And if you want to export it, they have an export button, and it like doesn't have the gist links in it.
Yeah.
Like you miss all of that stuff. So we wrote a scraper that will go pull out all the content.
Oh, nice. And is that scraper public?
What's that?
That Medium scraper, is that public?
Well, we kept it private because we didn't want Medium to shut it off.
Okay. You don't want to get I know a little bit about DMCA takedowns.
Oh yeah, that too. I don't know if it's, I thought there was like a court case that if something's public, there was like a court case against LinkedIn recently that if something is public, it's a lot easier for scrapers now to be able to scrape as long as you're not bypassing authorization.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. This is me and lawyers don't get along, so I try to stay away from all that stuff. But yeah, if you are a lawyer, feel free to reach out though. But no, what I'm getting at is actually I'm not even sure what I'm getting at, but that's actually pretty cool. And Sean actually mentioned that Stopa actually gets put on you mentioned it, Hacker News, quite a bit too as well. So it's nice that y'all are getting some.
He writes these really good, like his article on the Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It's the first post is what Gödel discovered. Is this really like thorough? I don't know how he has time to like collect all of this stuff and write it in such a way that's easy for developers to understand. But he wrote this super long post about Gödel's incompleteness theorem, and he writes code so that someone who's not a mathematician, he's not a mathematician, can understand how it all works. He's got a great blog.
Honestly, I'm not even sure who this person is, to be honest.
We used to work together at Facebook.
Oh, okay.
And then he worked at Airbnb, and now he and his friend, a coworker from Airbnb, are on like a startup journey in New York.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing too as well. And I think that what's really nice about this, and like, I think my original introduction to OneGraph and folks was through Jamstack Radio, and this is being like a very Jamstack way to get a blog up and running. and have it focused on a platform you already have, which is GitHub. Like having a repo that powers my stuff, hands down, is like one of the easiest things for me to get up and running, because like I can always make sure that my data still exists, even if I decide that bdougie.live is getting kind of stale and I don't want to update it anymore.
Yeah.
I still have access to all this stuff, and I don't have to go pay. Like, as much as I love database companies, which y'all, if you want to sponsor this stream, definitely reach out to me. But I don't want to pay just to post, some post that I really didn't put much thought into. As you can see. So I promise everybody who's watching this, I will write longer descriptions of these projects and keep them up to date. But for whatever reason, they just look nice this way, so I forget that I should add more context here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to put them in GitHub, because GitHub has a great API. You can get things out. You're not locked in. Like, everything is just completely open for you.
Yeah, and there's like some things like with the markdown in GitHub, it's pretty standard markdown, the GitHub flavor markdown, so that translates to UI work. I know there's been a lot of work with MDX and folks who have extended it. So I do have on my list of things to do is I want to actually work with MDX in the site and work on embeds. As I mentioned, YouTube videos and stuff like that, having those powered by MDX would be amazing.
You can already. I've proved this. I need to pull in the upstream changes, but you can put in when you create your issue, if you put a link on its own line, like it's in its own paragraph, it will embed a YouTube video. If you go to essay.dev,
I think the actual website itself.
Yeah. Well, the issues are good too. If you look for one by Sean, there's gonna be a ton by Sean. The first one by Sean, so you gotta scroll all the way down.
Oh, first one.
Yeah, it should be something like Reason ML. Yeah. So like that's just a link to a YouTube video.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll link to the actual blog post. So that gets turned into an embed.
Excellent.
And that's all server-side rendered. So that comes as an iframe from the server. If someone has some weird JavaScript disabled or something, they'll still see an iframe. I doubt it'll work. Like YouTube probably requires JavaScript, but.
Excellent. T13R is saying you just seen my MTV crib video. Very good. Speeding up transitions. Yeah, that crib video is going to be out of date after this weekend, because as you can see, my camera is different than normal. I'm actually going to be rearranging this entire space to be able to do more video. This space was optimized. The way my desk is sitting up against the green screen was optimized for me working from home 2 days a week. Surprise, I'm working from home every day, and I need to have a better space to work out of it. So I've negotiated with my my roommate here, my wife, and we're going to be migrating some of her stuff out, so that way I can have the full space. Surprise, it took me like 10 months to figure this out, that we're going to be here for a while, but here we are. Oh yeah, I missed some chat actually. Sean's been dropping some links and stuff like that. But actually, speaking of which, since it came up, AJC Web Dev actually linked to the Supreme Court case, I think, about the public data. So if anybody did not see that.
Wow, it's nice having an army of researchers.
People that can Google for you while you're on stream. That's what Twitch is for. That's why I do so much live coding, because it's hard. Stack Overflow is hard when you don't have a audience. I just need the answer quick.
I think if I did a stream, it would just be me Googling things the whole time.
Yeah, well, keep doing it and you'll have a whole team of people Googling for you.
That's true, yeah. I didn't realize I could have other people Google for me.
And speaking of response, what were we responding to earlier? Oh, we were talking about YouTube embeds too as well. So you said that feature itself is upstream, or sorry, it's not upstream yet?
Oh, it is upstream, but it was using this library called React Embed, which is a great library, but it doesn't do the server-side rendering.
Got it.
And so you would see this flash whenever you loaded it. So if you put it on a line by itself, if you put a link on a line by itself, that will become an embed depending on if it knows how to render it as an embed.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
Like it works with Twitch and code sandboxes and a few other things. Um, the new version renders it on the server, so I wanted to get that update too because it's a little bit of a nicer experience.
Got it. I'm just gonna grab I have a Baybot video.
Oh, nice. So I think well, maybe it works. We'll see.
Yeah, let's check it out. We'll see how fast this actually. Oh wow.
So you saw that it like had that flash
Yeah.
of a link. That's what I was trying to get rid of. So I just took like the existing stuff and migrated it over to like a more statically rendered thing.
Yeah, but that was still pretty fast too as well. Actually, if I go back in, Yeah, so I didn't see the link, but it does appear, which is still better than it was before because nothing was there before. So yeah, that's amazing. So I didn't even realize that was a built-in feature too as well. Yeah, so I'm curious if folks want to. For OneGraph, or sorry, for OneBlog, are you taking contributions on it?
Oh, sure, yeah. You want to work off if people want to work off the next branch and submit PRs to that. That's the place to
The
where the new
future
development's happening.
future of OneBlog. I'm curious if yeah, folks, if you're actually, that's what open source is all about. People always looking for contributions and opportunity. So yeah, and I know Joe.
Oh yeah, he was really good at giving us some early feedback on an older implementation that we had. The one that uses what's it called? Razzle, which has been getting some really good improvements. I'll just like do one small pitch for Razzle because I really enjoyed using it. They've been working hard. It's like create React app, except it generates something that renders on the server also.
Yeah.
So it's isomorphic create React app. And then some people have been doing some work on this recently to bring it up to the latest with like the React hot refresh stuff.
Yeah,
so it's a pretty pleasant experience to use it at this point.
Yeah, but it seems like for whatever reason, Next.js is just like really, it picked up steam like sometime last year, and like it's always been around, but then people just sort of really started jumping into it. Where like even this year, before you even changed over to the next branch, I already started like tinkering with Next because it just seemed like unavoidable. Like it seemed like something that you had to, if you're gonna do React, you're gonna have to take a look at Next.
Yeah, I mean they've got lots of really great ideas, and they make it easy to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And to build smaller bundles, and then their CDN is really well integrated with the framework, so they're pulling off some really nice things that it's really hard to do. Like when you pair Next and Vercel, it's a really nice combination.
Yeah, and fans actually got a question about can you leverage Next.js with PHP, like with a backend that is PHP? And honestly, I don't think so, because I think the whole isomorphic JavaScript server-side render thing, the way Next approached it, it assumes JavaScript on the backend.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only JavaScript, but you might be able to leverage different languages for your like serverless functions.
Yeah, it looks like there was a question about it almost 6 months ago, a little over 6 months ago. And it looks like it's just a question. Oh no, it's I think someone's figured it out.
Oh, interesting. Oh, this is like a guide to doing it?
No, it's just I think someone did it and they're like, "Hey, I did it. Here's the example," and then a very lonely one thumbs up. So, I'd say this. I would start here if you have a PHP backend fan, if you're interested in doing that, because this person probably would love feedback on their implementation, which is about 6 months old. So, probably not ready for Next 10. But Next 10 wasn't a big. They had a lot of features. They didn't have a lot of breaking changes, though.
Yeah, it was nice that they Well, they seem to kind of iterate pretty well on the main branch.
Yeah, they do.
Keep the upgrade path really.
Yeah, they do a
nice.
really good job. And I've only been using it for like probably 3 months, so my experience, they do a good job in the past 3 months.
I am excited about the stuff coming out of Cloudflare and Fastly though, because they've got, I mean, they're running WASM code.
Yeah, that's the Cloudflare. I forgot what the name of that is.
The workers.
Yes, the workers. But they have an open source project that's powering all this stuff.
Oh,
Wrangler.
There.
Yeah, I think it's Wrangler.
Oh, I thought that was just like a CLI.
Yeah, yeah. It is a CLI for your workers, but built to do. Maybe I'm conflating too many things. They got too many projects, so I'm probably conflating all of them as one thing. Um, but I just know about Wrangler as a way to get that up and running, and I know about their WASM work.
Yeah, so that's really nice because you have 0 cold start.
Yeah.
Well, maybe like a millisecond or so, but it's unnoticeable. And then, yeah, there's a link in there to the Lucet runtime, which is Fastly and the Bytecode Alliance. They've open sourced that. I mean, it's not. I played around with it a little bit. It's not like a thing you just drop in and it works. I mean, you need to do some heavy lifting on your own, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean the folks building cloud infrastructure and all these sort of like things on the CDNs, like it's been a very remarkable year and a half, to sort of see people advance all this technology. I just get the benefit from it. I'm glad I'm not working on it, to be quite honest. But yeah. I think Thad, you dropped a question. When do we use Next or React or Gatsby? How do we know when to pick on a project? I don't know. Do you have an opinion about that, Daniel? I have opinions, but I'd love to hear yours.
Well, we used. I really like Gatsby for generating lots of pages. So we build our schema docs as a static page. If you go to onegraph.com/schema, and that uses Gatsby, and we're really happy with how fast Gatsby generate. I mean, it's pretty slow. It takes like 5 minutes to generate this from scratch, but you can really get in there and like configure things. It works really, really nicely. I think if you're building like a big static page, and they've been implementing a lot more dynamic features. I feel like there's like an arms race between Gatsby and Next.
Yeah, you said it.
So if you're on either one, I think you're going to be pretty happy because they keep one-upping each other.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Next.js finally ship their proper static build command. That came like 9.3. Actually, earlier this year, because it was a issue I've been watching for the past couple of years. But like once they had like the static generated bundler built into Next.js, there's a lot of buzzwords that I just said right there. But just understand, basically, they gave you what Gatsby was doing for a couple of years by default out of Next. And then I think that's kind of where the adoption all the eyes sort of perked up. If you were doing Jamstack type stuff, hosting on Netlify, Next.js just made it super easy to do that. And now I think it's the inverse with Gatsby, where Gatsby is adding the dynamically rendered stuff. And I think we're all benefiting from it.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, both of them, I've used both, and they're both like really fun ways to like build apps and get things done.
Yeah, and fan first, statically rendered stuff. What I'm really talking about is if I went into my live site, like I have a bunch of dynamically rendered JavaScript, which I think I could grab. Which we didn't really jump and tour the JavaScript, but like if I went to just the head, you can see all my. Well, that's not really as exciting, but anyway, I've got all this stuff that's rendered. So if I'm on like a post page, the head will be rendered based like that, based on the JavaScript, so I know what title I'm looking at, which is here. And so if I click into, again, build a Twitch bot, this title is actually going to be the title that you can kind of see. If I just take this, oh, there we go, build a Twitch bot. So like all that stuff gets rendered dynamically. But sometimes running stuff dynamically is going to be painful or expensive. So the cool thing about Next.js now is that you could do like a next build and take your dynamically rendered stuff and make it static content. So if I make a change to my data, to like issues and stuff like that, it does get rendered dynamically. But actually, we didn't really talk about that server-side rendering. Yeah.
You did. So if you set up the right configuration, and it's pretty simple, you just export a few functions. So if you want to go into, if you can, on bdougie.live, to like, if you search for the, in the repo.
Oh, in the repo, yeah.
If you search for the file called slug, it should be in like source pages, and then slug.
If anybody didn't know, you can just hit T to search on GitHub.
So there's these two things you export. One is get static paths, and that tells it which pages to pre-generate at build time.
Got it.
And so what we do to figure out what pages to generate, we just go at build time and go fetch all of your posts, all of your issues.
Yeah.
And then there's this get static props, I think. Yeah, get static props, and that'll. So this is how we do. This is kind of interesting, maybe for people. This is how we do relay. So the site uses relay to fetch from GraphQL. I'm a little biased towards relay because I used to work on the relay team at Facebook.
Oh, I didn't know that. Stuff. I didn't. So I understood you had a bias, but I didn't know why.
But it's also like a really great framework, although it is like pretty constrained. Like it has some assumptions about how your GraphQL API looks.
Yeah.
So it's not. I would say it's definitely not the friendliest framework, but it's pretty powerful. So what we do is we like create this relay environment, and how relay works is when you run a GraphQL query, it generates some metadata about that query at compile time, and it stores those artifacts somewhere. It sends a query to the server, it gets the data back, and it doesn't like just put the data into the component. Instead, it puts the data into this normalized store. This is a technique that most of the clients use. So they put it into this normalized key value store, and then the component knows how to pull the data it needs from the store. And that has some nice benefits for composability that are probably like too detailed to get into. But if you go to relay.dev, they'll explain why this is a nice thing to have. There's like a nice tutorial about how this helps you build scalable websites with GraphQL.
So Jason WebDev asked about, is there a lot of forward development for Relay? Because he hasn't seen a lot of movement recently.
So they've definitely been pushing some big improvements lately. So what they work really closely with the React team. And so they've been working with React on like the gold standard of concurrent mode. So I think that's why they haven't it seems like they haven't pushed out a lot of marketing material, and they're not trying to get a bunch of users. And part of that is because like all of the new stuff, and maybe someone from Relay can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think all the new stuff requires an experimental build of React, and that's OneBlog does use the experimental build.
Got it.
But they've done a lot of stuff, and there's a guy, Gabriel, if you follow him on Twitter, his Twitter handle is 3_ZTH, 3 underscores.
That doesn't look right.
You want to look for someone named Gabriel. He's from Sweden. Maybe someone will link to his Twitch. But he's been doing a lot of work to make a Relay, a Reason ML wrapper for Relay. And in doing that, he's been implementing things that just make development a lot easier. So there's a bunch of this is the guy. There's a bunch of new directives he's added to make adding data to the store on mutations a lot easier.
Yeah.
So it's been improving a lot lately, and their hook support is really nice. And they've been, unfortunately, we can't make 100% use of their, like, they have these really nice pagination hooks where you don't have to set up anything. And if your GraphQL API implements the node interface, which GitHub's GraphQL API does implement, they can figure out pagination for you. So you don't have to write any pagination code. You just type relay dot like get next page or something, and it goes and does all of that work for you. And
that's in the latest version of Relay that's coming out?
That's in the experimental version.
Experimental, okay.
Yeah, so it's really nice. It does a whole lot of stuff for you automatically. We can't quite make use of that in OneGraph because since OneGraph is wrapping a whole bunch of APIs, like GitHub implements the node interface, so we can't implement the node interface. And we implement something that's the same idea but has a different field name. So it's called the OneGraph node interface, and it has a OneGraph ID instead of an ID field. And the node interface just lets you fetch any node in the whole graph. Every node in the graph has a unique ID. And that's really useful for pagination because you can just go up one level to the parent node and get the next page from the parent node. I don't know how much of that makes sense, but it's just like a really great abstraction that enables all of this automatic tooling.
Yeah, it made sense for me, but that's because I'm knees deep into this. I've mostly recorded a bdougie.live sort of video. I need to edit this weekend, but hopefully I can explain some of this like GraphQL stuff and how this all just works. And if folks want to get started, I think I might even mention essay.dev too as well. I need to add that in because I think it's a really good way to sort of get your hands into OneGraph and actually test it out and see like what the sort of capability is.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice. I think it's a nice demo project. People can kind of see how to build with Next.js and OneGraph and Relay too, although you could swap out the client if you wanted.
So everybody, we were talking about OneGraph, talking about OneBlog, talking about GraphQL and how to integrate that to make this site bdougie.live, as well as the other example that Daniel did show us earlier, which was essay.dev. Which, does this work if I were to do? I forget your GitHub handle, but I'll do sgrove.
Yeah, you can do sgrove. Well, he already made one, so you'll see.
Okay,
all of
so I'll
stuff.
see. So I can actually see his post. Interesting. Yeah. So this would be if someone really wanted to go cuckoo on this thing, and create like similar to like dev.to how you can have your own account. You're all leveraging the subdomain. Wait, what is this hosted on? How's this?
Oh, this is Next.js. They have wildcard support.
Oh, Next.js is doing this.
Yeah, so it's not quite as good as the single, because it can't use, with the subdomains, it can't use the get static paths and get static props because the paths are different per subdomain. So that doesn't work, and we use the server side rendered stuff. So it's not quite as good for our use case, but it works pretty well. And if someone wants to have something that'll get like that 99 Lighthouse score, they can there's a Vercel button, and you can go onto your own Vercel OneBlog.
Very cool. That's yeah, I kind of want to try this out, throw up a dummy project and see how this all can work for me. I'm curious, there's some back and forth about you contributing to React if you work on that, if you work with that team at all, but are you close to this sort of React team while you're working these working on the experimental branches? Like, how do you stay up to date with those features?
I mean, I just follow Gabriel ___ ZTH _____, and he's like the perfect liaison between what's happening in the Relay team. And there's also, there's a few people that work on Relay and post a lot about what's going on.
Speaking of which, I'm curious, what's next for OneGraph? We've got like really roundabout circle. We've talked about everything today, but I'm curious if folks are interested in getting engaged and trying it out, or is there a place they can keep up to date?
Oh, sure. So we've got a blog, onegraph.com/blog. We haven't been super great writing updates. We got a Twitter account, OneGraph.io. We're working on getting the OneGraph account, but it's being squatted on. And then we also have, so our blog is powered by OneBlog, and then we also have, yeah, there we are.
Yeah, I'm not following OneGraph. There we go.
Wow, a lot of Twitter follows today for you.
Yeah, it's a popular day.
So
we're doing a lot of work to update the docs, and also, by the way, CERN and Sim to ran and Earn develops. Thanks for the follows too as well. We're just talking about OneGraph, sort of rounding up the conversation. We built an integration to stop my music on stream, which is pretty cool. I'll probably have to backtrack on that and comment that out, because I don't know if I want that. I want Rihanna to play every single time I have someone join the chat.
Yeah, you might want to delete those queries at some point too.
Yeah.
If you want to use your Spotify for anything else.
Yeah, I could imagine my kids listening to like, Little Baby Bum and and then Rihanna come up. Or we do a lot of what's it, the Mozart Baby? You play like classical music so they can fall asleep too.
Oh, does that work?
Yeah, it does. Like if you just need, like we did white noise and like ocean sounds, but also having like baby Mozart play in the background. It's just nice to settle them and have them focus on something to fall asleep.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But what were we talking about? Oh yeah, updates for OneGraph. Sean mentioned there's some tooling too as well.
Yeah, lots of well, that encapsulates some of the code exporter stuff. And then we've got a few things that are in the works around more customization of your particular schema. So we have the ability to pull in now. You can pull in a Graph CMS schema, or I don't know if you've seen WordPress GraphQL, WP GraphQL.
I've seen a couple talks on that.
Yeah, so you can pull that into your. So those are interesting for us because the schemas are completely dynamic. So like everybody has the same Stripe schema, right? Because it's one API, and everyone has the same Spotify schema. But your WordPress schema depends on like what kind of objects that you have. So everyone has a different one. So we have a way of embedding a custom schema, so you can do more customizations. And we're going to go a little bit further down that road so that you can really fully customize your schema to do whatever you want.
For IoT, I love that idea. I was thinking of an idea where, so when I'm on stream, I've always wanted to have like an on-air light, be able to turn that light on and off, so that way the rest of the house knows, like, hey, I'm on a call, or hey, I'm doing a stream or a podcast, and be able to actually run that command from the computer rather than to go run on and flip a switch. So that's a little project that I would love to do. It'd be cool to sort of integrate that with the Twitch API. Well, with the Twitch chat.
That would be great. But yeah, I haven't looked in the last few days. Yeah. I don't think there's a few places that have the lockdown at night.
Yeah, Oakland.
Oh, you have it at night?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because we were purple. Well, I say Oakland, Alameda County. We were purple.
Yikes.
Sam's continuing down the trend. Calendar meeting in progress. Turn on Do Not Disturb. That's even better, to actually have the calendar API talk to the on-air lamp. So when it's scheduled for Twitch streaming or Zoom calls, that would be great.
Oh, you know what? That might work. Well, we haven't implemented the Zoom API yet.
Zoom has an API.
They do have an API. It's a bit of I got started on it and then didn't quite finish because it is a bit of a painful API to use.
Let me go back into OneGraph because I wanted to see the Again, too many tabs. I always keep these tabs open because I like to go back and look at the things that get mentioned, but I think it's being obviously an issue. Where was the off services? I just wanted to see, do you have is Google one of the off services that?
Yeah, we split it into different services. So we have like a Google Docs.
Okay.
And you can if you want to use a Google service, they have very, very strict OAuth restrictions. And so if you want to use a Google service with OneGraph, we require you to create your own client ID and secret on GitHub on Google's side. And the reason for that is it's almost impossible to get clearance for the scopes, and you have to have like a very specific use case.
Yeah.
So you can create a client ID pretty easily. Yeah, we have like a little page in the docs about how to do it.
Okay.
But then you can only get like 200 people on it, and they flash up this like really scary red screen.
Oh, really? So 200 people actually leveraging. So if I created a service that, like, if I wanted to have people subscribe to bdougie.live's calendar and be notified or be invited to the event, I can only have 200 people hit that?
Yeah, it's something like that. They limit the number, and then when you do log in, you have to you know that screen you see on the Chrome browser, if it doesn't support SSL or if the SSL certificate is bad.
Yeah.
It looks almost exactly like that. So you have to like go through this scary.
Okay. So yeah, probably not that. That probably wasn't a great use case, but for telling my light to turn on and off based on the calendar, I think that's probably a better use case.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to build like an automation yourself, it's like pretty simple to create the app, and then you'll be the only person who logs in, so it's not so bad.
Okay. And Sean's saying there's like a review process if you hit that number.
Yeah, it just won't let anyone new log in.
Got it. Interesting. So, I mean, I only have a couple hundred people following this channel, so I don't think I'll hit that. But I think for folks who are already kind of knees deep in this Twitch streaming and they wanted to do something like that, they would hit that pretty quickly. So I wonder if you could preemptively like say, hey, can you review my app before I hit this number?
Yeah, you can submit a review. They have like if you go through like this process on the docs, there's I think you might even be able to see it in one of the screenshots. There's like a review process that you can go through immediately. They just want to see, they'll want to see a lot of things like you tell them what you exactly are using it for, and you need to give them a demo account so they can play around with it, and you need to record a video for them. So it's a bit of a hassle to get through the review process. But if you have a very specific use case, you can get through. Until recently, I don't think they don't show ads unless you're in the partner program.
Yeah.
But now it's changing.
Yeah, I can't keep up because I used to be, I used to make money on my YouTube videos, even when I worked at Netlify, and they changed it like within the last couple of years because like I didn't have enough subscribers or something to.
Oh, they kicked you out?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, but I wasn't even paying attention then either. I didn't take YouTube seriously until this year.
Oh, okay, so now you're really going to ramp up the subscribers.
Yeah, you better watch out, everybody. Actually, subscribe.